Star Wars has had an incredible impact on my life, and it continues to do so. Um, the the Star Wars universe, um, truly amazing. Let me try and isolate the audio to get this right. Doo-doo-doo. Voice isolation. Here we go. The first time I saw Star Wars must have been when I was very young, before being a teenager. My parents showed them to me, and it created a sense of wonder in my childhood self that is truly hard to articulate. Seeing people go on valiant missions, fighting battles, visiting new planets, talking to robots, jumping in spaceships, flying around in zero gravity vehicles, um, uh, engaging in valiant intergalactic battles. It just goes on and on how enthralling it was. And I have very fond memories of my grandfather taking me to a second showing of the original Star Wars. Um, that was when it was re-released in cinema. I have very fond memories of my father taking me to see the first of the second trilogy of Star Wars. You know, the um, uh, episodes 1, 2, 3, no, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I have so many interests that in some way kind of related to this idea of there being a force, a invisible energy, a um, way of being that was different. In some ways, I think that um, my interest in martial arts, my interest in kite surfing, my interest in technology, my interest in sci-fi, my interest in California was all driven by my understanding of Star Wars. And this is something that is really special to me. It's something that I think about a lot now that life is starting to become a lot more like Star Wars. You know, we're starting to see robots, um, we're starting to see all kinds of things. And we're starting to see flying cars, we're starting to see rockets become affordable. We're starting to see space travel become something that tourists are going to be able to book or are booking. And so, in many ways, my life from a kind of pre-teenager 30 years ago to now, there has been so much progress on making life a little more like Star Wars. I mean, even right now, my car is gliding through the city, through a very complex environment, and it's giving me the confidence to, make this stream. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. Um, and the other thing is I like Star Wars very interestingly ties together California and Great Britain. You know, the original Star Wars were a collaboration between creatives from California and incredible set designers and musical talent and kind of theatrical talent from Great Britain. Um, and I do think that there's something to be said for that fusion of Californian optimism and energy and ideas and British taste and theatrical depth and skill. Um, and certainly as a British man or a boy, I became very curious about why it was that Star Wars emerged from the minds of people in California. What was it about George Lucas's placement in these beautiful hills in Northern California that helped him come up with all these great ideas? And he moved between LA, the Bay Area, up to Marin, and then eventually bought what's now known as Skywalker Ranch, which is a beautiful kind of private space that's dedicated to Star Wars memorabilia, his sound studio, and a bunch of other activities. It's just an absolutely stunning place just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I obviously, as a fan of Star Wars, we've been taken in a bunch of different directions. We've been taken to, um, the movies, the acquisition by Disney, the vast expansion of the universe into lots of different places. And we've been taken into, um, I guess I would say, a set of worlds that's very different from what many of us may have wanted. But the Star Wars show that really speaks to my nature um, now is Andor and The Mandalorian, which I strongly recommend people watch. It's really really something special. Mandalorian kind of shows you a after a little Yoda, and Andor shows you a highly effective individual who's joining the rebellion. And interestingly, both of them are not gifted with the Force, but are extremely effective nevertheless. And I think I enjoy that settling of the story to a kind of reality of training and technology. And in the case of Andor, main protagonist or character is Cassian Andor, and he is a truly kind of a savage but effective pilot and gentleman. Um, and in the case of Mandalorian, he is dedicated to the religious craft of the Mandalorian religion, and his whole goal is to become worthy of the armor and worthy of the weaponry. And I just feel like both of those stories are very archetypal male journeys. They are the hero's journey, and they explore what it means to become an effective man, what it means to become a formidable man. And in both of those stories, they are at their core lovers and fighters. They have um, both great compassion for their kin and great rage at those that would seek to hurt them. And that is, I think, something I hope to continue to embody and do better at, and be both a lover to those that I love and more effective at repelling those that would seek to damage that. And in many cases, Star Wars as a theme when it was acquired by Disney was sidetracked along social commentary lines that are, not very enjoyable for the fan base to be forced to watch. I think that Star Wars went from being a beautiful, psychodrama or soap opera in the stars to being like pretty tepid social commentary. And I think that the teams that brought us Andor understood that it needed to come back to some kind of fundamental truths. I think it's very interesting that Andor was written by a single person. His name's Tony Gilroy, and he wrote Rogue One, which of all the Disney movies is probably the best in many people's estimation. And Tony Gilroy has given extensive interviews about why he felt that he needed to focus Andor on uh, a man on a mission, and a man who was there in service of the rebellion, who started off as an outcast and then became a leader. And I think that by having a single writer, it gave the two series and all of the episodes an incredible through line on how you can truly articulate, um, and share like how the world should be. Um, yeah, the I actually need to look into who did the writing for Mandalorian, because I do think the first two seasons of Mandalorian are fantastic, and then it gets a little watered down and repetitive. But in both cases, these shows reached me at times in my life where I needed or wanted or enjoyed, um, having role models, or at least character arcs that were linked to something I loved so much as a child that were starting to land for me as an adult. And so, in the case of Mandalorian, it's the way he looks after young little Grogu, which I think is very analogous to anyone who is an uncle or a godfather, or a useful, like, adopted parent, or even just a parent or a guide to a youngling. And in the case of Andor, it's how you can be in service of a revolution, or at least a political movement, if you commit yourselves to it. Um, but more deeply, Star Wars for me represents this combination of the artistic, the technological, the expansive science fiction, the dream of technological progress, the excitement about, going to the stars. The reality is that that will create even larger scale human conflicts. No matter how many resources we accumulate, there will always be people who want to control more of them. And yeah, and at its core, I think Star Wars is a fusion of American optimism and an energy and filmmaking bravado, and quite a bit of British taste and creativity and set design. Even in the Andor show, many of the sets were built just outside London, because you have some of the best set designers, carpenters, craftsmen in the world who can bring those visions to light. So yeah, this is really just me reflecting and digesting what it is that I've loved about Star Wars during my life. And no, I appreciate people checking in. I'm gonna try and distill this down into a post and do a little more research and check things out. But yeah, that's today's thoughts. Cheers.